What's up, guys? We are back with a new wave of Mythic Legions figures. All-Stars 5 is finally upon us, and we're taking a look at one of the new figures this time around because, of course, All-Stars 5 is a little bit different. We're getting reissues and we're getting new stuff. So we're taking a look at the XYLERNIAN Guard. First up, this is a Legion builder, so it's an army builder for the Xylona's Flock faction, and I've been really curious to take a look at this guy just because he seems to have so much stuff in here, and there's also a pretty gnarly looking shield that I have been dying to get my hands on. So, of course, he comes in standard Mythic Legion style packaging for our normal figures. So you've got collector-friendly packaging. You can take them out, put them back in, figure there in the window. You've got the faction insignia on one side, bio card on the other. And then the back of this one actually includes the Ilithia artwork, but it has a cross-sell for this particular wave, as well as our Mythos write-up. So let's do it. Let's pull them out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our All-Stars 5 XYLERNIAN Guard. I'm doing this guy first because, well, I'm leaning towards him being my favorite of the wave, at least as far as the new figures go. And I wasn't really expecting that. You know, I did the early review on, the preview really, on Swig, and I've been really looking forward to the new Goblin. But having gotten this guy in hand, and then getting a few of them in hand, it's like, yeah, there's a lot to like about this figure, because not only is it a good figure in its own right, it's going to be super versatile for people who just want to part out another night, or to make new army builders, because while this isn't a Legion builder, he basically is. He just happens to be a fully decoed out Legion builder type of character. So let's see what he can do, see how he moves around. No real surprises on this one. It's a 1.0 figure, a lot of existing parts really, I mean overwhelmingly existing parts, so if you messed with one, you know what to expect. We've got a head that can look up a little bit, pretty decent really. He can look down pretty decently as well. You've got your tilt, we've got full rotation there. Arms, of course, out at the shoulders. You've got your swivel forward and backward. You've got your 90-degree, roughly, elbow there. Of course, it's a rotating elbow. You've got gauntlet swivel. We've got swivel at the wrist. And he has vertical hinges for his hands. Of course, it's a 1.0 figure, so you've got your single buck torso here. So he goes backwards a pretty solid bit. Goes forwards a pretty solid bit, too. Not too bad. Got some tilt side to side, which is really nice. And you've got your full rotation there. Legs go out all the way. You can get him to do those forest splits if you want. Kick forward all the way, of course. Backward as well. You've got your thigh twist up there. Single jointed knee, but really good range on these. Are some of the newer lower legs when it comes to Legions. We've seen some of this stuff in the Ilithia wave. And then there's rotation there also. And then you've got rotation at the top of the ankle. Got rocker, little bit of rocker. And then you've got your hinge down here as far as your legs. So he's exactly what you think he's going to be. I do think that he moves pretty well, though. I mean, very much through and through a 1.0 style Legion. So if you've messed with one, you basically know what you're getting into with this guy. Now, my main focus with this figure, and it goes without saying, I suppose, at this point, because I basically say it every single time I get a new Legions figure, is the looks. But it's a really specific reason this time. It's not just because the line is known for great sculpt and paint. It's because of what this guy is made up of. The various combinations of both old and new 1.0 parts are really doing it for me. It's also got a pretty cool color scheme. I'm really enjoying this new head. And I like what they've done with this helmet. The head and the helmet are two different components of the same sculpt up here. But there's a lot of 1.0, and when I say 1.0, I mean the original Mythic Legions, that Kickstarter wave. You've got standard stuff as far as like knight plate armor on the arms. We've got a standard knight's girdle piece. We've got the standard knight's legs. But it's those parts in this color scheme, because you've got this sort of dark pewter going on almost with this bronze and gold inlay. So that's kind of unique on its own. And you've got these newer parts with the gauntlets, the gloves, and the boots. These are still 1.0 parts, but these are newer. They're not new for him, but they're newer. We saw this with, like, Valak, for example, is the figure that immediately comes to mind, because we got new 1.0 style figures that sort of introduce leather components in that wave, and that's what you've got here. So you've got this mix of plate armor and chainmail, of course, because there's always chainmail inside the joints on the plate armor, but then you've got these sort of half and half, so plate armor on top, and then you've got leather underneath and leather gloves. And of course, they're painted in such a way to give off a sort of wetness almost in many ways, and like a soiled, dirty look. So you've got a bunch of wash in there. And then on the back, we've got those leather, basically, you know, boots down here. And then, of course, you've got the actual feet, which look like leather boots. So it's different. It's familiar, but it's different. And a lot of this stuff is not necessarily in great supply currently until this guy. So you couldn't just immediately go out and get a bunch of knight figures, really. Not all that easily. Same with some of these leather parts, certainly not in this color scheme. And that's one of the big things, is to be able to get these parts in a new colorway that very much evoke a kind of foresty theme, because that's what these guys are. They are Forest Knights 1.0 Elf Knights, which of course is an entirely new thing when it comes to legions. Elves were introduced in Advent of Decay, which was heavily focused on 2.0 bodies, so you got a lot more slender characters. This guy is big and beefy, and he's ready to throw down. And one thing I really like about him, beyond the combination of parts, is this color scheme. So it's the color, of course, of the armor, the leather components, and this green on the tabard. We don't get this tabard a lot anymore, this solid, you know, fabric torso. We don't see tons and tons of that anymore, and it's coming back. We also have a soft goods lower tabard here, which I really like. We do get the actual plastic, you know, the classic alternative as well, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But the more soft goods in this line, I think the better, especially when it comes to the newer style that, of course, feature wires, and I absolutely love this. And the color match on this is super close. It's not 100%, and, you know, it rarely ever will be, but it looks great. Very close there. And then, of course, we've got our new head sculpt here, which I'm just kind of over the moon with, because we get two of these, and they serve very different purposes. So, of course, you've got your sort of it's a very standard knight's helmet with a face shield. And these face shields, and I'll show both, you know, later on when we get to accessories, both of them feature different face shields that have different sculpt on them. So this is the one that comes in the box. You can pop that up, and you've got your green elf head in there. So these are whisperling elves within the mythos of Mythic Legions. We get a more Caucasian one for the other one, but they're the same sculpt, painted differently, that end up looking incredibly different. You can take this off if you want, so it can be popped off. If you want to swap the face shields between the two figures, you can do that. Because you know, it's Legion, so of course you can do that, right? But I think it looks awesome. Like, it's really cool. And this, of course, is a pretty standard knight color. So this can be used with other figures, and other heads, which we'll talk about later on, can be used with this body as well with great ease. So there's just a lot of good new stuff here that's, again, very familiar, but it's all really new. This color scheme, this mix of parts, that torso, the soft goods piece, and this new head sculpt in this configuration with that green color scheme in particular. The green one is my favorite. I just think it's tremendous. I'm really excited about it. And once I finally got this one in hand and got to see it, I immediately reevaluated how many I quote unquote needed. Now, as far as some size comparisons go, we've got our XYLERNIAN in the middle. We've got Gonks here on the left. And I mean, Gonks is a goblin, but this is basically a dwarf. So here's a smaller Mythic Legions comparison. And then here he is next to a 1.0 Skeleton Legion builder. And let's do some other stuff. So let's move Gonks aside and just go with some various lines. So here's an SH Figuarts. There is the Dragon Ball Z Turles. Let's move the Bone Boy aside. And here is the Animal Warriors of the Kingdom Tiberius. And let's move Turles aside. And here is a Super 7 figure. So here is Ultimates Lion-O. Let's move Tiberius aside. And we will pull in a NECA figure. Here is Warduke from the Dungeons & Dragons line. Let's move Lion-O aside, and let's do one more. Let's do Hasbro figure. So here is a U.S. Agent. He's, of course, not a scrawny Legends figure, but he is not in the same scale as Legion. So, of course, you know, this guy is a 1.0 Mythic Legions figure. If you've got one, you know exactly what you're gonna get with this figure. He is, you know, roughly 7 inches in height, give or take, and is going to scale just fine with anything in that arena. Now, as far as accessories goes, this guy's stacked. Let's just, you know, that's the short and long of it. Let's just start and stop there. I want to talk about first, though, how we get these accessories. You know, historically, all the stuff comes in a baggie. One thing is going to be in the tray with the figure, and then you get a baggie that's just sealed, and you rip it open. This time around, we get a zip-top bag, which I thought was really odd. I know this has been brought up already, and I swear I saw them say it was a mistake. Either way, it's kind of cool. All my figures like this for All-Stars 5 came with the zip top bag, so that's kind of a neat, weird little thing. I'm not going to mention it going forward, but, you know, that was something that's obviously different. Beyond that, you know, actual accessories, we get, of course, our extra head sculpt. So we got our Whisperling elf head here, green skin, obviously, with black pupilless eyes, and then you get your more Caucasian elf that has, you know, Caucasian-style skin with green eyes, and I really, really like the green eyes here. Same sculpt, so it's the exact same head. But then you have the different face shields, and these are different. So you get the one with the cross on it, and the holes are only on one side with the one that comes with the Whisperling. The other elf has just holes on both sides, and of course the eyes are different. So the eyes on one are 2 eye holes versus an entire eye bar, basically, for the other one. So you can mix and match those because, like I said, they can be removed and you can easily swap those just fine. Now, I did mention you get the tabard pieces here, so the cloth piece and the plastic piece come on the figure in the box. It is kind of weird. The soft piece is wrapped around the ball peg. This pegs into the crotch so you can take it off. And if you need to take this one off, you know, for some reason you don't want to use the soft goods, you have to take the figure apart in order to get to that. You just pop the torso off though, of course, because it was mentioned somewhere along the line when these were being shown originally that people wanted both options. So they just decided to include them, which I think is awesome that they decided to do that. We also get pauldrons. These are very standard knight style pauldrons, so it's more of that pewter color with the gold and the bronzy inlay, which of course, you know, always transforms the figure. I always think it makes them look infinitely cooler. This guy I do kind of like without them, but I think I do prefer him with them. And then we get our actual weapons. So to start with, we get the elven bow, and I've said this a million times, I'm not a big fan of bow and arrow, crossbow kind of characters. I always have the hardest time with them, but I do like this bow. I think it looks really good. I just like the sculpt of it. And then, of course, it comes in a very bronzy color to match his color scheme. We get a singular arrow. So it's got a green for the feathers on the back. You get a quiver of arrows here. It's also done up in his colors. So you've got the bronze, the gold, and more of that green. And then we get this big elven sword, and we've seen this a handful of times before. This isn't new, but I really do like this sword. Gold hilts with the little green jewel, and then you've got the silver for the actual blade. Nice, lustrous, metallic, shiny, all that stuff. But the star of the show is undoubtedly, and I will take no arguments to this, is this shield. This is nuts. I have been waiting to get this in hand just to see what it's like. Because not only is it a brand new shield, you know, entirely, it introduces more customization for the line. So you've got this huge Xylona bust on the front, basically, with her in all of her golden glory there. But then you've got the shield on the actual back part. This is 2 separate pieces. So take the handle off, and this pops out. So there's your shield with his colors. So you got the signature colors of the XYLERNIAN guards. But then you've got this piece that is keyed, so it will fit in only one way. And you pop that in, and then you've got your shield. So obviously we're going to be seeing more uses of this shield. I would wager we're going to see, you know, the great beasts are going to be featured in shields down the road. But this is just one of the coolest weaponry style accessories I think we've ever gotten in the line. I absolutely love it. The paint detail, the sculpt is just through the freaking roof on this guy. It's gnarly. My only complaint, and it's one that I can mitigate pretty easily, is it's heavy. You know, it's a lot of plastic. It's going to weigh on that wrist joint, but it's so cool. I love everything about this. I can't wait to have these just sort of lined up on a shelf and just to gawk at them for at least a minute or two. And then, of course, you know, we're going to get customizers who are going to start making replacement plugs for this that have some crazy, crazy sculpt on them. So I'm really curious to see what comes out of this. And then, you know, as usual, we always get something that we've seen a million times before. We don't get any back adapters. I didn't get any back adapters with these guys anyway. We get the ever-present strap just to round him out. So a lot of cool stuff here. I mean, I really dig the fact that they included both tabard pieces, but you get the pauldrons, you get the head, and you get all these cool accessories as far as weapons goes. This guy is, I mean, again, he's stacked. So yeah, I mean, this guy is really good. I'm so happy with this one. It's the one I opened first when I got my shipment in, and I really haven't been able to put him down. I mean, I've really neglected the other figures up until this point because I really like what's going on with this figure. It's this combination of parts, this color scheme, the soft goods, the new head sculpt, all of these accessories, you know, not to mention, of course, that crazy, crazy shield. There's just a lot about this figure that I really like, and I'd say that it's probably my favorite Legion builder, army builder kind of figure that we've gotten in quite some time. I don't usually gravitate towards knights. I like them, don't get me wrong, and I do collect them, but I don't gravitate towards them. This guy is a different story. Something about this guy being a 1.0 forest elf knight Legion builder is really doing it for me, and I think they absolutely knocked this one out of the park. So that's going to do it for this look at the Mythic Legions All-Stars 5 XYLERNIAN Guard. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.